Hello friends, I hope you're well and staying safe. So I've had a busy weekend building a steel shed for my new lawnmower and other bits and bobs, and I learned some really important lessons that I really want to share with you. The first is don't hold your hand on the other side of a steel sheet when drilling in a self-drilled steel screw in, as you may not want to have your hand as part of the shed. Then when on a ladder, don't stretch over and reach that one little screw on the other side of that roof beam that you've just put in, unless you have really great core strength and you can lower yourself when the ladder takes a walkabout. But you're not here for Trademan Pat tips, we are here for some tech. My name is Pat and I have some great stories for you today. We have good deeds by the NBN, coexistence to blame for low speeds, new rules around new developments, and Facebook threatens Australians. Yes, my friends. Then on the international side, India and Pakistan versus China, and Nvidia's new graphics cards have been announced but not yet released. So welcome to the Dirt Report, weekly Aussie tech and telco news. Remember, if you like this video, then tap that like button and make sure you're subscribed to not miss a thing. Let's roll the intro. Alright, let's get started with our first topic, and this time it's not bad news. In fact, it's fairly good news, and I think many RSPs will be happy, and in turn it will mean customers will have a good time. NBN Co has announced they will extend the extra bandwidth offer for another 3 months. So I suppose slow clap, well done. It's as if the new extended bandwidth that the RSPs have access to is working, right? For some reason, the bandwidth is now functioning well and everyone has enough to go around, enough speed to go around. It would be nice to wave the CBC goodbye, but this is only for another few months. Now, NBN Co didn't do this out of sheer generosity, no, not at all. The collection of RSPs and other interested parties forced the wholesaler to do so. This comes at a time where many RSPs are increasing the cost of their 140 down plans by around $10 per month, that's what I've noticed, or not offering it at all. A lot of plans' prices have gone up. Now, a lot of them are also moving users to the new $99 per month plan, which is the 100 down and 20 up. The increase in price is an odd one because its major differentiator is the upload speed, which tends to be low anyway. And so many still only look at the download speed when purchasing, and marketing is all about that download speed. But 20 upload I think is a bit low, especially if you want to stream or upload large files in a reasonable amount of time. So for now, it's the status quo on the NBN performance. But in the future, you may see peak period slowdowns return if your RSP has not purchased enough CVC. Well, this extension also applies to the Sky Master satellite services and its extended data cap, but also waiving wholesale internet fees for low-income families. I'm very happy to hear that. Now, instead of the ACCC propping up Murdoch Media by trying to force Google and Facebook to pay for news content, they should put more effort into the inquiry into NBN wholesale pricing. But hold that thought for a moment. Let's jump to our next story. You may be aware that during the fiber to the node deployment, NBN Co had to limit the hardware in the node to not disrupt existing legacy connections. And as they continue to install more and more NBN connections, existing legacy systems could be affected by the fiber to the node hardware, and so a temporary limitation was put on the fiber to the node systems. This meant fiber to the node performance suffered. So coexistence in the past has been touted as the golden goose to speeding up the fiber to the node connections, and so many have been waiting for it to be turned off. More so now that NBN Co stated they have completed the build phase. Now, there are about 126,079 fiber to the node premises as of this week that still cannot hit that magic 25 megabits per second down, and NBN Co says this is mostly due to coexistence still being enabled on those nodes. Though they also said many will require an upgrade to fiber to the curb, because even turning off coexistence won't help. In the NBN Co statement, they said that currently approximately 30% of fiber to the node services have reached the end of coexistence, with legacy telecommunication services enabling NBN Co to reconfigure the node and utilize the full speed capabilities of the line. Numbers wise, coexistence has ended for 5,750 nodes out of the total 27,933 nodes, so there's still a long way to go. But a few weeks back, we heard about renewed pressure to upgrade fiber to the node connections to full fiber, with NBN Co conceding to that point. But I doubt that anything will happen until coexistence is off on all nodes. There are a few roadblocks to turning off coexistence, as many of these legacy connections are things like traffic lights, ADSL connections if any, voice communication and business related systems that are still functioning probably on like Windows XP. There's also the other major problem, and that is home wiring that can cause even more problems, and it is harder to diagnose and obviously costly to fix. In the past, and maybe even in this situation, coexistence has been used as smokescreen for the NBN to hold off upgrading badly performing lines, saying that once this is off, all will be well. But the likelihood of that line that can't hit 10 megabits a second now doubling in performance and then trying to hit that 25 megabits per second is unlikely to happen with just coexistence being turned off. And all this may just be political foreplay to delay full fiber upgrades. Why delay? Well, it's all about who takes the political blame and how it's paid. I mean, they've got to get the money from somewhere. So in my opinion, once all the nodes have had their coexistence turned off, we should see a slight improvement in connections overall and a reduction in bad connections, but not all. And then NBN Co will target those premises that still are unable to hit 25 megabits a second and potentially start the upgrades on the very worst affected lines. Let me know below if your fiber to the node connection got better when your DSLAM or node coexistence got turned off. Let's chat below. Okay, let's jump into our next story, which fits in very well in this telco roller coaster. New rules around new developments and the telecommunication infrastructure have been released. I have linked the Department of Transport and Infrastructure website below for more details if you wish. There are two aspects to these rules, but to me they sound more like common sense statements. In any case, they call them rules for those who are buying or building a premises in a new development and for those who do the developments themselves. This new policy replaces its predecessor from 2015 to match up with the current state of the NBN. I want to point you to some highlights that I think are very important, especially if you're building or buying, and if you're a developer, well, I hope you should follow these anyway. So if you're planning to buy or build a property in a new development, you should check that your developer has arranged for telecommunication infrastructure to be installed before signing the contract. You should also ask your developer or the person selling the property what telecommunication infrastructure and retail services will be provided in the development, and who is providing them and when services will be available. You can check the statutory infrastructure provider register maintained by the Australian Communication and Media Authority to see if it lists your development and the provider which is servicing it. If you're building a new home, you should make sure you think about how you want your cables in your home for broadband and phone to be actually installed to suit your needs before finalizing the design of your home. If you do this after your home, obviously it'll be more costly. Now, if you're a developer, these are the rules for you. You see, you are responsible for providing telecommunication infrastructure in your developments. You can choose any carrier you want to service the development. And if you don't wish to choose another carrier, NBN Co is the default statutory infrastructure provider for all of Australia anyway. Now, there is a bit more to this, so make sure to check out the links below, but I wanted to point out that you have the right to have telecommunication infrastructure in your home, and you should make sure to check this before you sign any contracts with your developer or builder, though that's usually common sense. Anyway, let's move on. This next story is a fun one. Facebook is now lashing out at the ACCC and technically threatening the rest of Australia. In a statement called An Update About Changes to Facebook Services in Australia last week, Will Easton, Managing Director for Facebook Australia and New Zealand, outlined how the ACCC proposed bill that lets publishers charge Facebook and Google for as much content as they want at a price with no clear limits would dramatically affect how Australians use Facebook. He said no business such as Facebook can operate in this way. He added that Facebook has brought Australian media outlets $200 million worth of traffic to their websites, and that the fact they are a platform that helps news outlets to discover is plenty of value. From my point of view, media outlets should be paying Facebook, I suppose. But that's neither here nor there. Easton said that Facebook will reluctantly stop allowing publishers and people in Australia from sharing local and international news on Facebook and Instagram. I wonder how this would affect conspiracy theories and the spam that you get, but nonetheless, not a good sign at all, and I don't even think a VPN would help. I have linked the full statement below, and while Facebook is a bit late to the party, the ACCC consultation closed on the 28th of August. Their response is pretty graphic. It clearly outlines what they will do, and we know what we will lose. Unlike Google, who played the emotional card of how it will affect Australia, and I don't think we really understood what they meant. The huge tech companies are not going to budge. Spain has already tried a similar approach, and their media outlets have nearly collapsed. And publicly, Aussie media outlets aren't seen in the best light by the public. Well, the ones who would actually benefit from this anyway. So let me know below if not being able to read the news on Facebook would affect you. I think in fact I would opt into not seeing any content from news outlets on Facebook anyway. It's a lot of spam most of the time. In any case, let's move on to international tidbits. And before we jump in though, make sure to tap that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope you love my croaky voice today. India and Pakistan are having a bit of trouble. The Chinese app controversies keep getting bigger and bigger. This week, India has banned more than 100 apps that have links to China. India has made much bolder moves than the US and tensions have risen. I expect to see many more countries banning these apps, and Australia is sure taking their time. Pakistan, on the other hand, has banned Grindr and Tinder on the basis of spreading immorality. In July, Pakistan issued a final warning to TikTok over explicit content posted on the platform. It has also banned access to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube in recent years. Well, good luck with that. Finally, our last topic. This week, Nvidia unveiled the heavily leaked new RTX 3000 series of graphics cards. While we saw what looked like, what we did not expect was the price to performance of these new cards. With the lowest spec RTX 3070 beating out the previous generation's RTX 2080 Ti at a lower price. That 2080 Ti cost nearly $2,000 and some had a model for $2,500 Australian dollaroos. Now the RTX 3080 looks like to be the reigning king of PC gaming with a reasonably affordable price compared to last generation, and the RTX 3090 is the balls to the walls, over the top, money no issue powerhouse gaming card. Unfortunately, it has been confirmed that RTX Founders cards will not be coming to Australia, and we will only be able to purchase third-party cards from companies like ASUS, MSI, and so on. Here's the Australian pricing for the three new cards. Then RTX 3070 is starting at $809, beating out a $2,000 card of the current generation. The RTX 3080 is starting at $1,139, so about $1,200 probably, and then the RTX 3090 is starting at $2,500. I don't necessarily recommend the 3090, it's a little bit over top, but if you'd like to discuss the new RTX cards launch in more detail, Casper and I spent an hour and a half going through it on our podcast this Saturday. Links below for you to enjoy that. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope to see you next week. Make sure to tap that like button, and if you'd like to see more content like this, then please consider subscribing. Every like helps my throat. Thanks for watching, and bye!